It's a little chilly out here today. I'm not going to stay out very long. I'm going to take you back inside and show you the wood stove and talk about some of the problems that we're having with the government. But I came out to check my experiment. I got an experiment here. I've been using these Tattler lids, and what they are is they're reusable lids. They have a little gasket on it, two-piece part. You got the white piece, and then there's a gasket that goes on it that you take the gasket off clean, and they're reusable. Huge money savings. A couple of issues with them. One, you have to be very picky on how you tighten the lid. And what you do is you put your finger right here on the lid, and then you just turn the jar with the ring, and that keeps it loose enough that it vents. The problem with that is when you take it out, you're supposed to let it set for 2 or 3 minutes, and then you tighten the lid. When you tighten that lid, if it already had a vacuum in it, and you can tell there's a vacuum in it because the water's still boiling in the jar, you can break that vacuum when you tighten it. So that means it's got a re-vacuum seal. And to me, that just seems a little weird. Now, yesterday I had one fail on me. And the one that failed on me was one that I tightened and it lost its seal, and it just never regained its seal. So I did an experiment where I put it on tighter like I did a normal lid. Now, that is very dangerous. You're not supposed to do that. The reason is because pressure can build up inside the jar, and when you pull it out to tighten it, it can spew all over you. So I decided to fill these jars up with water. That way I don't risk losing any food. And I just tightened the lids down. I didn't touch them. I brought it up to temperature, let it pressure rise and do the whole process. And then when it all cooled off, I took the lid off. I'm gonna let the jars cool right here in the canner, see if they all sealed. I think I'm gonna have a better success rate. The thing is I didn't have to turn that ring and lose the vacuum and hope that it would reseal. I just didn't like that. So doing a little experiment, if it works, then I'm gonna try it with food next time. And now I'm not suggesting you do that. You should follow the instructions on the back of the Tattler lid box. Whatever you do, if you decide to do it this way, don't touch the jars until they're completely cool, because like I said, that pressure can come out and water will hit you. Hot water will spray out. I've seen it in videos, I've never done it, and it can burn you. I've seen this happen with regular lids too. So my suspicions are it happens with quart jars, and since we rarely do quart jars, we usually do pints, I think we're gonna be fine. Okay, so I'm gonna go inside and I wanna talk to you a little bit. It is gonna get down to 36 degrees tonight. So I think I'm gonna have to start the wood stove either tonight before I go to bed, or at least when I get up in the morning. Now tomorrow it's supposed to get up to 64 degrees. The problem with the wood stove in this little tiny house is when there's that big of a fluctuation in temperatures, you know, from 30 degrees to 60 degrees, it can get pretty hot in here when you have the wood stove going. So I'm trying to time it right. And also I'm trying to toughen myself up a little bit. I'm a summer fan, love summer. I'm not a big fan of winter. Now Carolyn's just the opposite. She could live in a 50-degree house and be fine, but don't put her in the summer. Well, since I forced her to go without air conditioner this year, I didn't force her. I've asked her many times, do you want an air conditioner? She said no. But since she was tough enough to get through summertime without an air conditioner, I'm trying to toughen myself up. So I'm letting the temperature in the house get down to 60 degrees. Maybe in the morning, it'll probably be in the 50s. Usually when the outside temperature is about 40 degrees, it gets to about 63 in here. But since it's going to go down in the 30s, that means that when I get up in the morning, it's going to probably be in the 50s in the house. So I've already got the firewood ready to go to light up in the morning. Now, like I said, I may do it tonight, depending on the situation. We'll see. I'm not going to burn this one real hot. This stove, I've told you before, has these reburners in it. And the reburners burn the smoke. But the reburners have to be like 500 or 600 degrees before it will actually catch the smoke on fire. These are air tubes is what they are. Well, since it's not going to be that cold tomorrow, I put a little bit of wood in it. That way the stove doesn't get real hot and I don't have coals all day long. I just put a little bit in it. And I ran 2 pieces. I'm going to call the in and out here north and south. And then this way is east and west. So I cut all this wood up, little pieces, like this piece here. I cut in half and I put down here at the bottom. Then another piece just like that. So it's not much. The problem with that is the reburners probably won't get hot enough to make the smoke catch on fire. So it's going to run a little bit inefficient, I would think. I don't know, it may not. Regardless, I don't have a lot of firewood in there. What we noticed with this wood stove is it really doesn't get too hot in here when the stove is lit and there's flames going and it's really pretty, but it doesn't get too hot in here. When it gets hot is when the flames die down and the coals take over. You got all these hot coals for about 8 hours. And from anywhere from 2 to 4 hours after you light it, 2 to 4 hours after you light it, is when it's at the hottest in this house. Then it starts to cool back down. So that's what I'm trying to avoid tomorrow, is that 2 to 4 hours of that really hot stuff. You figure I'm going to get up 5 o'clock in the morning, start this up. So at 6 o'clock, temperatures are going to be down outside around 36 degrees. By 8 o'clock, this thing will be at its peak temperature. And then it'll start cooling down again as the temperature is starting to go back up to the 60s tomorrow. So a little bit of planning ahead. Now I know a lot of people don't put that much effort into the wood stove, but I do. One, because I like for it to run efficiently. Obviously tomorrow's not going to be that cold, so I'm not going to run it that hot, and it's not going to run that efficient. It means that we're going to get a ton of smoke out of it. But when you run it efficiently, there's all kinds of advantages to that. One, you're not using as much firewood. Get this thing to last 8 hours. I'm only lighting it up 3 times a day. I get up in the morning, 5 o'clock, I light it up. Not hard to light either, it's really easy to light. And then about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I light it again. And then probably right around by the time I'm lighting it again. So 3 times a day just isn't terrible. And that gets us through the night. I don't have to get up. Now on really cold nights, last year, now remember last year I didn't let it get below 68 degrees in the house. But I would get up at 2 o'clock on really cold nights and light it again. The thing with that is it was still hot in the house when I did it. I just didn't want it to get too cold. Now the only disadvantage that I have if I can let it get too cold in the house is I have my water tank outside and I run ventilation from inside the house to the water tank. And so I blow hot air from the house into the water tank. If the house gets too cold on really cold days like that, I'm at risk of my water freezing. So when it's 0 degrees outside, I may still get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and light this, but that's not because it's not keeping up. It's because I'm worried about my water freezing outside. I gave a community tab poll. All you gotta do is go to my channel, click on community tab, and you'll see all these polls that I have. And I asked the question, are you going to be able to afford heating costs this winter? It was interesting, the results I got back. A lot of people who commented said the reason they clicked yes, they're going to be able to afford heating costs this year is because they have wood stoves. All my firewood is free. Every bit of it. Most of it, 90% of it, was already cut up in log size. All I had to do was split it, and I use them all, so I didn't use gasoline. And then if I had to use a chainsaw, I mean, what am I talking? Maybe $10 in chainsaw cost per cord of wood. $10 a year is what it's costing me, maybe. What I do is I have this app called Free Stuff. You go to your app store, download it, and it monitors Facebook Marketplace. And anytime somebody's giving away a tree, they cut down a tree in their yard for the springtime, they'll post it and I go and get it. So all my firewood is free. And that's what happened in the community poll is I think most of the people are saying that they're going to be able to afford it because they have wood stove. So the poll came out 50-50, basically 48-52, which is pretty clear to me that half of the nation is not going to be able to afford their heating costs this year. Some of them are going to have to make sacrifices. That's what some people said. Well, I'm going to have to give things up this winter just to be able to heat my home. The government doesn't want us to run these wood stoves anymore. The EPA has done everything they can to restrict how much particulate can come out of the chimney. And I just heard that they're actually going to try to make the particulate coming out of the chimney 0. That means 0 smoke has to come out of the chimney. That means even these reburner stoves, which are like 95% efficient, will probably be obsolete. What they're going to use is a catalytic converter. And those things are expensive. And Carolyn was telling me the other day that she read that you have to replace those converters, so it's catalytic converters, regularly on those really expensive stoves. So they're really what they're trying to do is price you out of this. They want you to go to electric heat. What they don't seem to understand is nobody can afford electric. So how are you going to have electric heat? People are going to do what they have to do to stay warm. And so what is going to happen is more people are going to just build their own wood stove instead of going out and trying to actually save the environment. I mean, it's crazy. They want us to save the environment. They want us to buy wood stoves that are efficient and they don't put out a lot of particulate. But then they make it where you can't even afford it, so you are forced to pollute the environment just to survive. Now, I recognize that when you have the elitists, they think the real problem to our environmental issues are there's too many people on the planet. So if you want to fix the environment, your goal is going to be to get rid of the people. Now, we already know that there is an organization, can't use their name, that wants to eliminate, I think, 99% of the population. They want to get it down to 500 million people. So the only people that will be left is the people, the elitist, and the people that are going to serve them. So what I would suggest is go to Home Depot today. Even if you don't intend to hook it up, go to Home Depot today. Go get yourself one of these reburner stoves with the air tubes. They're like $2,200. And if you can't afford the $2,200, then go to Facebook Marketplace and start looking for wood stoves. Just found one the other day. I think it was a reburner stove. It might have been older. It may have been only 75% efficient or whatever, but it was free. Carolyn found one the other day. I think it was $200, $250. This one had only been used once or twice, don't remember, and it was only, I think, $400, $450. It was real cheap. So you can find relatively new stoves and you're still doing the efficient thing where you're not having to use a lot of firewood. I know when I was growing up, my grandparents would use a ton of firewood, but they were running wet wood. You lose like 60% of your efficiency, I think, when you burn wet wood. You cut it down the same year you burn it, because you're using all your energy to boil off that water. So if you can let the wood dry for 2 years, it's about 18 months is what it takes for oak to dry. I know all these country boys tell me, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. But it took me 2 years to get this to dry. So I'm just going to say the average person is going to take them 2 years to dry firewood. If it's oak. Now, if you got sycamore or poplar, then it's going to take about 6 months. But you're going to have to do something. I think there's a real issue with the natural gas costs. I think it's going to go through the roof. Electric cost is going to go through the roof. So if you'll check out this up next box, take you to the video where I was showing you in detail how to run this wood stove. So I hope I can inspire you to buy a wood stove so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.